Here's a number straight from the Department of Labor, not a critic of the industry. A 1% difference in annual fees can reduce your 401k balance at retirement by 28%. Not 1% smaller, 28% smaller over a full career from a fee difference that on any given month looks too small to notice. A rounding error on a single statement that compounds into one of the largest single costs most people will ever pay without signing anything or agreeing to anything. If your plan would otherwise grow to $1 million, that 1% is $280,000, quietly gone to fund companies and record keepers you've probably never heard of and never chosen yourself. Today we follow the money into the account most people trust the most and check the least, using data from the Department of Labor, the Investment Company Institute, and peer-reviewed research sourced on screen the whole way through. Let's get into it. Pillar 1. The fee you think you're paying isn't the fee you're actually paying, and this is true almost everywhere, in plans large and small, at companies that otherwise do everything right by their employees. Say your plan statement shows a fund with a 0.55% expense ratio, $525 a year, on a $100,000 balance, which already sounds reasonable enough that most people stop reading right there. But that headline number is rarely the whole story. Layered underneath it, often disclosed only in a separate fee document you'd have to go looking for, sits a 0.10% marketing and distribution charge called a 12BL1 fee, then a 0.15% sub-transfer agent fee, which is essentially a payment back to your plan's record keeper for administrative work, then a flat quarterly administrative charge, commonly around $75 that shows up as its own separate line. Add those together, and that 0.55% fund is actually costing something closer to 0.90% all in, $1,350 a year, not $525. Nearly 2.5 times what the headline number implied on the exact same account without a single fee technically being hidden, just spread across enough separate disclosures that almost nobody adds them all up. For comparison, the lowest cost providers in the industry, Vanguard for instance, average around 0.06% across their entire fund lineup. That's not a hypothetical floor. It's what's actually achievable at scale, which makes the gap between a well-run low-cost plan and an average one look less like a rounding error and more like a completely different product wearing the same name. Pillar 2. Why this actually matters more later in your career than earlier, which is the opposite of what most people assume. Consider two identical savers, same contributions, same 7% return, differing only by that same 1% in fees. The Department of Labor's own published example, an account paying 0.5% in fees grows to $227,000 over a career. The same account paying 1.5% grows to only $163,000. A 1% fee difference cost this saver $64,000, money that simply evaporates into someone else's revenue, not the market doing worse. But here's the part that surprises even people who already know fees matter. Fee drag actually bites hardest late in your career, not early because fees are charged on your balance, not your contribution. Early on, when your account holds a few $1,000s, a 1% fee is a rounding error in absolute terms. Decades later, once decades of contributions and growth have built that account into hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars, that same 1% is suddenly a very large number, charged every single year for the rest of your working life. Picture a saver with $850,000 sitting in their account with 15 years left before retirement. At a 7% return, that grows to about $2.35 million. At 6%, the same money, minus a 1% fee, it grows to roughly $2.04 million. That 1% fee costs this saver more than $308,000 in just the last 15 years of their career, more than the entire career-long fee drag on someone who started from zero. The bigger your balance gets, which is exactly when you've earned the right to stop paying attention, the more expensive the exact same percentage fee actually becomes, in real dollars, at precisely the moment in your career when you can least afford to lose 15 years of compounding to it. Pillar 3. Why the higher fee option often stays in your plan's lineup even when it doesn't perform any better. And this one is a genuine conflict of interest, not just an oversight. It's called revenue sharing. Some mutual funds rebate a portion of their expense ratio back to your plan's record keeper or administrator as compensation for the services those companies provide. A 2025 study out of the University of Texas at Austin's McCombs School of Business found that arrangements like this existed in 54% of 401k plans studied, meaning more than half the time, at least one fund in the lineup was quietly paying the people managing your plan a cut of your fee. The same research found these funds were more likely to be included in a plan's lineup in the first place, despite costing more, and despite not delivering meaningfully better performance than cheaper alternatives sitting right next to them on the same menu. The extra cost wasn't buying anything measurable. It was buying the fund a spot on your plan's approved list. Meanwhile, actively managed funds, the kind most likely to carry these arrangements, commonly charge expense ratios well above 1%, sometimes closer to 1.5, while comparable index funds tracking these same broad markets cite under 10%, occasionally as low as 0.05. The average equity fund inside 401k plans nationally runs around 0.26%, and the average target date fund around 0.29%, both notably higher than what a plan could offer if cost, rather than revenue arrangements, were the only thing determining the lineup. And the performance case for paying more simply hasn't held up. Long-running industry research consistently finds that most actively managed funds fail to beat their plain index equivalents over any extended stretch once fees are subtracted, meaning the extra cost isn't a premium for better results, it's just a cost. So, 3 pillars: the layered fee, a headline percentage that's routinely half of what you're actually paying, once 12b1 fees, sub-transfer agent fees, and flat administrative charges are added back in, spread across enough separate disclosures that almost nobody adds them up in one place. The compounding math, a fee difference that costs the most, not when your balance is small, but exactly when it's largest, late in your career, when you've most earned the right to stop checking and the dollars at stake are the highest they'll ever be. And revenue sharing, a structural arrangement present in a majority of plans studied that can keep a more expensive fund in your lineup specifically because it pays your plan's administrator, not because it serves you better or performs any differently than the cheaper option sitting right next to it. None of this requires your employer to be acting in bad faith, and most are legally required under federal law to monitor these costs on your behalf on an ongoing basis, not just when the plan is first set up. It requires noticing that the default in most 401k plans is not automatically the cheapest available option. It's the option that's survived a lineup shaped, in part, by who gets paid for keeping it there, and that the only real defense is the one most people never do, actually opening the fee disclosure and adding up every layer, not just the headline number. If this made one more part of your paycheck's future a little less invisible, that's what this channel is for. Money, explained with the receipts on screen, not vibes. This wraps up the first stretch of this series. Next time, we're going somewhere a little different. Gift cards, and why unredeemed balances make them one of the most quietly profitable products retailers have ever sold. Subscribe so you don't miss it. See you there.